Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Before we get started in today's video, don't forget to join our free Facebook community, get real answers to real credit questions, learn from some of the experts in our industry, as well as from other people that are in similar situations that are taking advantage of the free content, improving their credit and making their credit situation better. Hope to see you guys on the inside.
Hello and welcome back to the Credit Agent Show. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the differences between Vantage and FICO. But before we jump on into it, if you haven't seen our previous video discussing the FICO 8th iteration, be sure to click that card up in that right top hand corner so you can get that detailed breakdown before watching this video where we'll discuss the differences with the Vantage scoring model. So with that out of the way, let's dive on in. An important thing to discuss before we begin talking about both FICO and Vantage is what exactly a credit score is. Now, a brief overview of what a credit score is essentially it's a snapshot of your credit report. And a credit report is just that detailed breakdown of all of your finances when it comes to your credit lines and balances and things you owe, like collections on certain accounts. So going back to, that credit score, once again, it kind of compiles all of that information into one easy to read score. And from there, lenders at a very brief glance can tell your creditworthiness and trustworthiness when it comes to loans, apartments, mortgages, auto loans, and other types of credit. So when it comes to the credit scores themselves, both FICO and Vantage have their own separate scoring models. So what exactly is kind of the difference between them then? Well, it's just going to be the way they look at your credit report. No matter what, your credit report is going to stay the same. There's only one type of credit report, but the type of score dictates whether the category they look at on your said credit report is going to be weighed differently or not. So let's take a look at some of the design objective similarities between both Vantage and FICO then. Well, again, both Vantage and FICO were created with this idea of judging somebody's credit worthiness and this intention of predicting the likelihood of making on-time payments, consistent payments, and overall just being consistent with the lender themselves. Communication is key a lot of the times when it comes with lenders, and being as transparent as possible is another reason why credit scores were invented. Generally, the main takeaway when it comes from credit scores and the similarities between both Vantage and FICO and how they look at your credit score is the higher the score you have, the better. Now, both Vantage and FICO are going to use the same scoring range, which is going to be from that 300 being the complete lowest you can go, all the way up to 850 being the highest score possible. Now, generally, Vantage and FICO, because they weigh things differently, are going to have a different minimum requirement, if you will, when it comes to the majority of loans accepting you right off the bat. But in general, if you have around a 650 or higher, you should be okay. And if you're within the 700 range of either of these scoring models, you should be good for just about any type of loan that you try to apply for. More similarities to really kind of consider when it comes to both Vantage and FICO and how they're related is the ECOA compliance. Now, what exactly is ECOA? Well, it's known as the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and ensures that scoring models must pass two tests. And taking the quote directly from the act here, it says scores for lending purposes in the United States must be 1, empirically derived, and 2, demonstrably as well as statistically sound. So, and this really kind of means empirically refers to scores being calculated from proven scientific methods, while demonstrably and statistically sound refers to the scoring models working successfully. Now diving on into some of the differences between both FICO and Vantage, it's going to be the founders. These are not going to be, from the same three major credit bureaus. They are founded by completely separate founders and almost attribute themselves very similarly to Pepsi and Coca-Cola in the past with their huge rivalry. They're both vying for control over the credit world. Now, all three major credit bureaus are still going to recognize generally both of these kind of credit scores, but not all lenders are going to use the same scoring model. So reading off both FICO and Vantage's kind of history reports here, and I quote, "FICO is a publicly traded company based in California. It was created in 1965 by a person of the name Bill Fair, who's an engineer, and Earl Isaac, a mathematician." Now, Vantage, on the other hand, is a solution-based company in Connecticut, and it was founded jointly by TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, the three major credit bureaus, in 2006 as a viable kind of alternative to the more popular at the time and still currently FICO scoring model. So continuing on into some of the differences between the two scoring models, we're going to be talking about the scoring criteria. Now, I did mention previously they do use the same 300 to 850 scoring model, but they do have some differences when it comes to, the types of prerequisites to first getting your model. So with FICO, you need one active kind of credit or trade line open to qualify for a FICO scoring model, as well as it needs to be 6 months old. A lot of people will assume as soon as they get their first credit card and make their first payments that they have a credit score. Well, with your FICO score, it doesn't necessarily work that way. You won't even have a FICO scoring model until 6 months later. So with the Vantage scoring model, it works very similarly in that you have to have at least one credit or trade line open, but instead of it taking 6 months with FICO to start showing your first kind of credit score with them, it only takes 1 month. So overall, Vantage is going to be a lot quicker, and if you're starting to kind of build and develop credit, say you just got your first credit card, you may want to monitor your Vantage score for the first 6 months because you'll actually be able to see that credit score become tangible and change over time. This is a great way to start building credit in a very healthy and beneficial way, and it really helps you kind of keep track of your credit score before you get your FICO score. Now, the scores aren't going to be mutually the same because, as I mentioned previously, they do have separate scoring conditions when it comes to those, scores being calculated. But, earlier on, it's a great way to start monitoring your credit and prepare for your more popular and more feasible FICO score to become developed in that 6 month kind of post-interim period.